Good morning. Today is April 11th, 2018. Hey, this is the Crushing Iron Triathlon podcast.
It sure is. It's the eve before our April camp, and all through the house, everyone was dropping off their bikes.
And already stirring.
And they're already stirring, is right. They're already out.
Yeah.
DJ and Sean got in yesterday. Peter dropped off his bikes last night. They're all out and about, checking out Nashville. And
Bikes plural?
Peter brought a couple bikes, yeah.
Man,
yeah,
must be nice.
He's
I'm gonna have his wife talk with my wife.
Yeah, and his wife is here, and he's got a road bike and a tri bike. He's not sure where he's going yet, but he'll figure it out.
Okay.
They're all up and about, enjoying their alternative vacation here in Nashville.
That's right.
Beautiful morning, nice sunny day, warming up.
I'm glad that you and I could help the struggling tourism and economic growth that Nashville is currently struggling through at the moment.
Yeah, I know. It's we got from the interim mayor sent me a note the other day. He was pretty grateful.
To put that one up on the wall. So how are you feeling after our road trip? You recovered from the drive?
Yeah, I did. Went out to the lab yesterday, hit it hard.
Oh, you did go out to the lab yesterday.
Yeah, I'm looking at that as a warm-up to getting fried this weekend. Frying the legs.
Yeah, waking them up, open them up. And it's supposed to be really nice weather. At least Thursday, Friday are supposed to be stellar. But from where most everyone else is coming or what they've been going through themselves, this is 70 today, 79, 79 back-to-back days. It's like going to be getting hit in the face with summer, and I am all about it.
Yeah, exactly. It was like 53 yesterday, and these guys went out riding in T-shirts. They're from Minnesota, so they haven't been outside yet.
Exactly.
I said, just remember you're not on a trainer, so you got to steer.
Yeah, that's probably getting out and getting the lab's probably a good idea for them.
Yeah.
Get some handling, because most everybody's been on a trainer, which most of the country has been stuck on a trainer here the last little bit, and it doesn't even look like spring is coming for a lot of folks. So it's as they said yesterday when they shot me a text, it is sunny and green. I did forget. One of the things we moved back to Nashville last year was that I just forgot how green it was.
Did you?
In Nashville, it's just really, really, it's just crazy to see how green it is here compared to everywhere else. So yeah, it's nice. Nashville's a great city if you're interested in. Just checking out the city, but more importantly, you can come out, hang out at one of our, as Mike said, alternative vacation camps. We have this one obviously is starting tonight with dinner, a little pre-athlete get-together and meet and greet and Q&A, and then we will start rocking and rolling Thursday morning. We'll go through Sunday. Got, I think, 19 or 20 people coming from all over the country for this camp, and then we've got one spot left open for June and 3 spots left open for August camp. So if you're looking at wanting to get away and do some focus training, and honestly, if you want to bring a family or the spouse or loved one or friend or whatever, it's a great place to have somebody tag along. It's a pretty cool city. So we got a few openings there, so feel free to check it out.
Yeah, and you're gonna have a pretty big crew over at the house tonight. Does Allie have
partying late?
How's Allie's sod looking in the backyard?
It's looking good, man. I'm waiting for it to warm up a little bit. I'm gonna go water the backyard and the front, and I'll be honest, man. We easily have the best front yard on the street.
Oh, really?
Yeah, hands down. But anyway, taking care of the backyard, has some new sod down, and it's still a work in progress, but it's come a long way since when we bought it. So, things are looking good. It'll be a nice night, have some good food and good company, and everybody gets to meet each other, and then we get rocking and rolling tomorrow morning.
Mm-hmm. And how are you going to be feeling? You feel pretty good after the race?
Yeah, man. Considering race on Sunday and every bit of our 12-hour drive back on Monday, in which I was the pilot for a good 10 hours of that leg.
Yeah, hopefully those 2 hours I drove on the way
It did.
in.
It made all the difference in the world, man. It was
Saved
a
your
little 2-hour
legs.
shakeout. Yeah, 2-hour shakeout.
I should have put you back there in the Normatec boots.
I know. Yeah, we didn't have any room, man. We were already packed to the gills. So, I did. I felt I moved around a little bit. Yesterday I went and swam. Yesterday actually I did like a 3,200 little easy swim at the Y, and sat in the sauna for a little bit to help kind of loosen things up. And I'll probably do an easy spin today. And I think I'm definitely a little bit, definitely a little achy, but I think a lot of it is just contributed to raced, and then I basically just sat for like 4 hours because it was freezing cold. We were and then we were cheering on summer, and so I just sat for a while, and then obviously sat again on the car ride home, and then so just a lot of sitting. But I think given that I'm happy with where I'm at.
Yeah. So you're, and again, we've touched on it numerous times, and we don't have to go into it too detailed, but your post-race recovery basically sounds like it centers around swimming and riding easy a little bit this week.
Yeah, I'll definitely get a few easy runs in, but nothing crazy. So I'll keep things loose, and it's great timing for camp. So it kind of will help keep me walking around and moving, and just make sure I'm eating the good things. I stopped. The night of the race, we went back to the Scandridges and had pizza, and I slammed a few double stuffed Oreos. But then we didn't really eat that great on the road trip back.
No.
But I kind of stopped the crap food, the post-race gluttony yesterday. So I am back on eating clean, and that's a huge part of recovery too, is just eating well and taking care of your body and making sure you're taking in enough fluids and hydrating and keeping moving. And so I'm back on it, man. I'm ready to enjoy this week and get back out there and keep getting better.
Now, one of the things I'd like to do in the next, maybe month or whatever on the podcast is find a nutritionist, and we may have one, but with some news coming up around that. But I want to get somebody on here to kind of straighten this shit out, because we were talking about this last night at dinner with Sean and DJ, about how confusing it is. And we've, that's not like a secret that it's been confusing, but it seems like it's getting even more confusing. Now I'm hearing these, there's the guys who did Stronger, Faster, that documentary, what the hell is that called? A couple documentaries, one on pharmaceuticals, one on Stronger, Faster, or whatever. And the guy's in recovery and everything like that. And he's a lifter / runner, whatever. But now they're coming out with this like food documentary. And this guy was on there talking about, how ketogenic diets are all the rage right now and everything. And he'd been on that. But get this, now he's talking that that really wasn't quite, he didn't think it was quite the right thing, and something was, a little bit off with it or whatever. Now he's on a carnivore diet, and to add to that, not just all meat, but like now they're talking about how fruits are the perfect supplement to a carnivore diet because of somehow whatever. Anyway, it's just crazy. And then the other thing they were talking about is how vegetables are more or less diet. No, but I mean it's basically right. He had started that, and then he was like, "This ain't quite it either." And then they're adding fruits, and it's like,
and then a year later they're like, "Oh, you know what we should do? We should add some grains." And like, "Oh, what? For fuck's sake, you're back to a regularly scheduled diet." I mean, it's just like
that. Yeah,
come on, like it's. There's probably a million ways to just really get your body the right way, but like we kind of talked about on the way back, like it's things like diet and things like that. It's about totally selling out, and you have to be all in. But anybody, I mean, it's the same thing as like in at least the way I see it is, are there probably some things that are maybe better for certain individuals, sure. But diet is up there now, like food and what you eat and why why you've chosen to be vegetarian or why you've chosen to be vegan or why you're going ketogenic. Like it's up there with like, why am I Catholic and why am I a Democrat? Mm-hmm. It's people get super defensive about it. And I would say 99 people out of 100 that are like so far into it never look at the opposite side of the coin. Everybody look, and we all do this in like ways of our life. We always look for things to validate our belief. Mm-hmm. And I think that's food in a lot of ways. Like, we looked at things to confirm our belief because, we're so centered on X, Y, and Z. And if we like even remotely think that, oh, well, crap, that might not be right, then it gets really uncomfortable. Yeah. I mean, I'm sure it's a gigantic rabbit hole to go down to, but we even listened to it, some of it on a podcast on the way home from Texas, the Rich Roll podcast with Alex Hutchinson, and he's a guy I greatly admire, incredibly smart man, has about every degree you can imagine or would want to feel confident in speaking about like nutrition and what's good and what's right. And he was even like, yeah, man, I can't even like go into it because you get like hate mail and like, it's crazy. It is crazy. Like how like defensive people get about it. And hey, is there a perfect way? I don't think so. I don't think there's a perfect way.
Well, no, from what I gathered of that conversation with Hutchinson is, his thing was really big on the mind, Mm-hmm. So I do think that the human body is super resilient, and if you could talk yourself into any kind of diet and really buy into it, you might be all right. Because I just think, with the exercise, of course, and good rest, because we're just very adaptable, and the exercise piece with the oxygen. Getting into your body and your muscles. I just think that, I don't know, it is a weird one because I'm very dialed into that and my body and how it feels and stuff like that, and I haven't been able to put a pin on anything really. Sometimes I can eat quote unquote very healthy for 3 or 4 weeks, and I don't really know. I mean, I feel good, I guess, but sometimes I can eat not so great and just feel really good too. And I think a lot of that has to do with attitude and grace and compassion. And I can tell that you've been kind of on a compassion train lately, and it's been awesome. And that kind of stuff helps. You know what I'm saying? Like if you have a point, a purpose, and you really understand what's going on, and you have good people in your life, and these guys came in this morning they were talking to me because they're staying at my house. And they said to me, man, that must be kind of weird for for 2 guys to come up to your house that you'd never met. And we know all this stuff about you because we listen to the podcasts. And now here we are walking up. You don't know anything about us. We're just going to stay at your house for like 4 days or whatever. And I said, yeah, it was really weird in the beginning, the first time, because I just didn't know how to expect it. But what we've learned over the last year, after meeting so many people that listen to the podcast and that are in the closed group, search Crushing Iron group on Facebook to get in there, is that we're really, the people involved in listening to the podcast in this group are really, I don't know, they're just really in line and they're cool people. I've just got so much more, I guess, faith in trusting that, when we go out on the road and we meet people, they're just cool people, Which is mm-hmm. I guess that's my compassion statement of the day too, and I just feel grateful to have, that kind of a community around the podcast and the community of people meeting each other and they're building friendships with other people, and I just think that part, we talk about diet and all that sort of stuff, but the, I guess, mental aspect of knowing that you have people that care in your life and that you can trust and be around and feel good around, that goes a long ways, man.
There's so many aspects, and we talked about, again, like we probably could have recorded like 20 podcasts on our road trip on the way down to Texas and the way back with the conversation, but a lot of it on the way back was centered around this Alex Hutchinson interview and what he was saying about Also what he was talking about with Kippenage or whatever his last name is, the basically the greatest marathoner in the world right now, the guy that they use for the Nike Sub 2 project. And they're talking about, what kind of books do you read? And he's like, and they're like self-help books, but they're already in line with like things that he believes in. He's like, apparently he's a very simple man. And it's funny, the greatest marathon in the world, you think about, like he said, you think about Kenyans, and the last thing they'd ever think about is going on an all meat diet. It's just kind of crazy. But, to his point, it was like, I think that, you can read through a lot of things. You can read to learn, you can read to challenge yourself. But I think when you find like a mindset and a belief that works for you, a lot of times it's just really good to continue to reinforce it. Like reading, like picking up a book that reinforces what you already believe. It's like, say you are on the right track, because sometimes you can get bored and start to question yourself. But if you focus on, affirming what you already believe, and like you said, surrounding yourself with people who also either believe the same thing that you do, or at least support your belief or mindset in whatever journey it is, whether it's in sports or life or occupation or diet or whatever it is. If you don't have a lot of those people around, then you're willing, or you're more able to flounder. And I'm not sitting here saying you shouldn't have people that should challenge you, and challenge the way that you think and the things you believe. Like, you don't need people to just coddle you 24/7, but that's not what it is. It's people that, because if you have I would say like an aggressive mindset, like you're always wanting to get better, you're always wanting to continue to do the right things. You want athletes or other friends and support groups that's going to continue to help you push that direction. And then if you flounder, you want them to say, you need to get back on it. Remember how happy you were doing this, or you can do this, you don't need to give up, instead of the friend that's like, yeah, you know what, it's probably too much. You should probably take a break. And there's the big difference in those. But I think it's there's a lot of positive things to be gained and learned from surrounding yourself with people who help you in your kind of daily affirmations.
Yeah, the support. For example, ever since you've started coaching me, I've always appreciated this about you, and I think a lot of the athletes that you coach appreciate this, is that you're willing to learn, and you're open-minded on that to other people's thoughts and opinions on that, but you're strong enough in your core values and beliefs about training that you stick to that, but you're willing to sort of bend around into these people's belief systems and encourage them to trust their body and trust their path. And I think that's to me, that was always a huge element, because I do like to dabble in different things. And I think but the catch is to your point about people that are aggressively trying to learn, is that when we get it, and I'm sort of that way at times, where I'll try I'll pick up a new book and I'll be like, whoa, this is changing my whole paradigm. And it kind of fires you up for a while. It's sort of this external motivation. It's a new thing. It's a new shiny object. And you start going down that road. And that's what I think a lot of these diets can be, and that sort of stuff. And it becomes external motivations rather than finding your purpose and finding your internal push, and staying on that path. Because we were talking about how, I forgot who said it, but it was something to do with weight loss and the best way to lose weight. And whoever it was like, most of these diets that are out there laid out will work. It's just up to you to stick to them. Mm-hmm.
Yep.
And that becomes the catch. It's like whatever path, that's been sort of carved out by somebody who's been there before, or whatever's been through it, is pretty good chance that it's going to work, whether it's training or building a business or whatever the case may be. The whole key is to actually follow through, because most of us just sort of start, do the basics, get that part going, and then all of a sudden there becomes this next phase of that procedure, that plan, And that's where we go, well, yeah, that doesn't seem, well, I don't know. Maybe I need to find another, and you start like wavering into a new stimuli area,
Yeah.
And that can happen all the time with training. It's like like you said it, just buy, if you find a training plan that, looks pretty good on the internet, you follow that thing to a T, it'll probably work pretty well for you. But the catch is the nuances that you as a coach, you will offer in between, and whether it's recovery or mental support, or dealing with how to balance family life and or whatever, all those types of things.
Yeah.
That's how you actually make that plan work, or can follow through on it. I'll think about that.
It is. I mean, it's so much of our lives are who we surround ourselves with. And because they are like, they always say, like, your five closest friends basically tell you like everything you need to know about a person, like, and what really influences their life and their decision making and stuff like that. And so if you think about like the overwhelming amount of access that we have now to connect and communicate and be around people, it's like you have a million choices, which can be overwhelming and poor decision, and can lead to poor decision making at times in terms of like comparison and social media and reading into negative posts or letting negative thoughts creep in your mind. But at the same time, you now have access to more people than you've ever imagined. Growing up, like, you and I were talking on the way, or I think it was in Texas. You're like, remember when we had to call the operator to get a number?
Yeah.
Like you meet a cute girl out and you're like, I don't know her number, but I remember her name. And so let's look it up. And like, oh, there are 4, Megan Smiths in the Charleston, South Carolina area. And you got to like go to the operator and like, all right, just give me all 5 numbers and I'm just going to call. But now, so you're kind of limited. But now you have access to so many different avenues to connect that can you kind of lead to more mistakes? Sure. But if you are willing to kind of go out and I think be really, really transparent and authentic, you could meet a whole lot of just really awesome people and do things that you never imagined. And then hopefully those people and those beliefs and that support help propel you to be able to achieve something, regardless of what avenue of life it is you're trying to currently, focus on. That's what, leads to, I think, the happiest, most fulfilling life. And that goes hand in hand with sports. Like if you don't have, and what we do, on a daily basis, and what our athletes do on a daily basis, you can't have too much positive support. There are a million things in life that too much of anything, is bad. But having too much positive support in the journeys and the races that we try to accomplish and we sign up for, like there is no such thing. And it's just kind of weird. Like I said, I didn't really think about it till this last weekend. And you look around and you see these athletes that finish a race, and I understand, with that there can be logistical issues and timing and family and whatever, but like these athletes that like finish and you see them just like walking home alone, or finish and nobody's there to talk to them. And it's just like, man, like, kudos to that person. Like, there's nothing wrong with that, but how much different of an experience it is to have so many people around. And that is without question my favorite part of coaching, in that it's my favorite part of a race when an athlete finishes and does something. If I happen to be there and schedules align and I'm either racing it or I'm there spectating, and you got an athlete that finishes in their first this, or just, you can tell, it's a huge accomplishment and it's a huge thing. And I just like to sit back and just kind of watch. Because the things that we do and the things that anybody that's probably listening to this podcast is either signed up for or is taking on like something that they know is going to challenge them. And they have people, hopefully, in their lives that are like, man, like I'm going to support you with everything I have, but I just don't know how you do these things. Like I can't. It blows my mind. But their way of participating in it is through support. And that, like I said, like coaching wise, like we had an athlete that just finished this last weekend, and like there was like 20 people and their kids and stuff like that, and hugging, like everybody's like crying. And you realize, like as a coach, when you work with athletes, and you're not just coaching them to the finish line, you're also like helping and assisting and driving this train of support. And it's when an athlete finishes, and if you ever finished like a big race, you've had family and friends there. I remember when you finished your first at Wisconsin, your mom and dad and brother and sisters there. It was like your whole family just completed Ironman Wisconsin.
Yeah, it was amazing.
It was amazing.
I didn't realize how big of a deal that was going into it either, but
and I don't think that we as athletes understand it either until you finish. And like I know you had family members that were crying and were like all emotional. It was like they were sky high. But you just see like this journey that you take people on that follow you and track you and support you. And it was just another reminder, when I was spectating after I got done, it was like spectating is, for the most part, infinitely more difficult than participating. Mm-hmm. But just the impact that athletes can have on other people that they watch and make them part of their journey. It's like something that they just walked around and ran around all day trying to follow you to make sure you did what you said you wanted to do, and you did it. But then when it comes like times you finish, like I don't know, it's a very cool experience and to have. And as a coach, I know that athletes, like you said, when you finished Ironman Wisconsin, and other athletes that I've seen and been there when they finish, it's one of those once in a lifetime things. And I think it's hopefully everybody will get to experience it at one point or another.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because I've seen a lot of, and I've thought about it too. I mean, I think that's maybe in the triathlete DNA a little bit, to say, you know what, I'm just going to go off and do some crazy race over in Montana, and just be there by myself, and just make it a trip for me. And mm-hmm. And then you said, it's really most of the races that I've either raced or spectated, I've had other people around. And even still, like when I go to spectate Wisconsin and make these videos and things like that, it's a little bit hard because everyone is there with someone, and they're all focused on whoever they're watching, and they have their list. It's kind of hard to, get into other groups if you're by yourself. Just because, and it's not because people are mean or everything. I just think that everyone's sort of focused on what they're doing and who they're watching and everything like that, and they don't want to. And it's kind of hard to get distracted and start spending time with someone you just met. And of course, you meet people and things like that, but you could be watching, and then you look up, and they've decided they want to go run around the corner to catch them coming back on the loop, and they're gone forever or whatever. So it is easy to sort of feel alone at the end of a triathlon if you're not, there with friends or family and things like that. And that is kind of a weird, I guess, spot to be put in, because it is the culmination of a lot of training. It's your race, and you're excited about it, and then you get done, and it's this huge accomplishment, and you talk about like, wow, man, I just want to hug somebody, and then maybe nobody's there, or whatever the case is, and that can have an impact on you, So we talk about, man, that's sort of like really at the core, in a way. I don't know I always think about why we kind of started doing this, and the goal behind the community. And in a lot of ways, I think that we felt that on some level, and we like the idea of helping introduce other people to each other, and building more of a family, vibe, and less isolated, even at race vibe. So, I don't know. Yeah, it does kind of sink in once you go down there, and I was blown away. When Summer got done, and I knew there was a bunch of people around, but when they gathered for that group photo, and there was like 20 people in that thing or whatever, I was like, wow, that is. I mean, she was emotional, and I got emotional, and they had shirts made, and you forget that kind of stuff happens, in some of the earlier times that people do it, and it's just really cool.
Yeah, it's a cool experience.
So, and you had a bunch of people around too, but I don't know.
I had you around.
You had me. I was there.
Yeah, but I mean, like you said, a minute ago, like I, wasn't just logistically with travel and the stuff we have upcoming and stuff. It was Allie and Hayden weren't, able to be there. And while, I'm sure, a few tiny aspects of race logistics and morning stuff, would have been, a little more difficult with, a toddler around. Like I would have much rather had them there, at the finish line and share that experience with than not, and seeing them, because there's something about, seeing the people in the faces during a race that are the same faces and people that supported you along the way.
Yeah.
It's that emotional, mental kind of reaffirming of why you did it, and they always know the right things to say, and it's just it's a different hi and hello and a butt slap or a you got this. It's just it brings up a different feeling and experience.
Yeah, because really you're doing it for them too, and last year at Louisville, I remember I went up there and I brought my dog to stay at a friend's house of mine in Louisville, and about halfway, or when I came out on the run, Sarah's the girls who Maddie was staying with, and she had brought Maddie down to the race, and it was like a super surprise for me to see my dog on the run course. Just little things like that. And of course,
doing it for Maddie.
Doing it for Maddie.
Yeah, but it's
Put a roof
important.
over your head, little girl.
Exactly. No, I mean, and I did something. I mean, this was definitely the first kind of bigger race I've done without Allie there, and definitely Hayden there. But I wrote them both an email like the night before, and drafted it and then sent it when I woke up on race morning, and it was just kind of like a thank you to her, and then I wrote like a paragraph or so for her to read to Hayden. It's kind of like a thank you and for getting me here, and just some kind of kind and supporting words, because I think that I think it allowed me to race well too, because I think that if you have to be in a really good positive place to race well, and doing the things that we do and the time that it takes and the travel and the finances and all kinds of things, like you need supportive people, and if you don't return that favor, then I think you're not just doing them a disservice, but you're doing yourself a disservice. And
and that's nice. It probably grounded you too.
Yeah, it did. It grounded me. I wrote them. I think I started it like on Friday and then finished it up like Saturday evening, and just a paragraph or two for Allie and about a few things, and then wrote something that had her to read for Hayden, a separate email. And just knowing that they were going to read that, and that Hayden was going to hear that when he woke up, and I would be racing, and they would know those words and what my thoughts were going to be and how I planned on executing, and that I was going to have a good day and things were going to go well. Again, it's that positive affirmation, and that, I thought about it a few times on course. I thought about, something that Allie told me before I got in the water, and she had texted me and she was like, you can only control, two things. You can control your heart and you can control your thoughts, and that's it. And I remember thinking that on the return trip heading into the wind, I was like, I can either choose to tell myself that I hate this, or I can just tell myself that I need to keep being smart and doing what I'm doing and I'll be just fine. Instead of, because you're going to go down one rabbit hole or the other. You're not just going to like flirt with both. You're either going to go down a negative rabbit hole where you're just, negative self-talk, or you're going to go down the rabbit hole of positive self-talk. And I think negative self-talk is something that happens to us all sometimes. And it was just kind of choosing, I'm just going to keep doing it. I'm going to keep doing it. I'm going to keep doing it. And, and do the best that I can. And I think it does. I think it keeps you grounded. and I also kind of think that and when you say grounded, it kind of made me think like, finish the race, and then I was already thinking about like what I can do to get better. Not in like I'm not good enough, but in I can do this. I can get faster. I can do not like I can do more. Like I need to just do more hours and take up more time. It's just doing things differently and just focusing more. But it was like, it was just the race was also like a reaffirmation of where I thought I could be. It didn't go perfect, but they never do. And so I think it just kind of helps you also keep perspective because so many of our athletes, that are listening, we have this race real far in the future. And then basically anything on the other side of that race ceases to exist. Like there is no planning. Like it's what are you doing next? And then you have your race. And then like anything after that, it basically like it's like the world is going to end the day after you finish your race. You don't even like think beyond it. And then as soon as you finish your race, you basically spend like the next, weeks or months, talking about your race or thinking about your race or feeling about your race. And this was like one of the first ones I got done. I was like, all right, let's go cheer. And then, all right, back to work.
Yeah.
Like it's not going to just sit there and soak up the, this great race. I mean, it was a good race. I don't feel like it was my best, but, I went back to the pool yesterday thinking, all right, it's back to work. Yeah. It's because I love doing it, but I also think I set myself up for that in the way that I went into the race.
Exactly. It sounds like it gave you clarity on some things, and B, we talk about not blowing yourself out in training and causing multiple off days or tired or depressed or like lethargy or whatever. And it sounds to me like you talk about racing smart and stuff like that. Not that you didn't leave it out there, but you still raced within your plan and to what you thought your capabilities were at that time. And to me, it sounds like that's creating a pretty quick comeback and a good attitude going forward versus I've done races where I've quote unquote left it all out there and literally left it all out there, for the next 2 weeks or my triathlon future was in jeopardy.
Yeah.
And it sounds like you came out of it with a good space. I mean, for example, and it may be one of those simple ones where you had you knew where your power was on the bike, and you knew what you were shooting for, and you basically were around that. Whereas say you 220 or whatever was your goal.
Yeah.
And that in an analogy for me and you, what did you end up 220?
My normalized power was 224, but my average power was 222, and my goal was around 220. So, I went a little bit above, but I also gave myself a little leeway. And after 30 miles, if I felt good, I could push it some. So I was right there. I was well within the parameters of my plan.
Yeah. So, like, if I had a goal for 220, I could easily have seen myself, without a power meter, especially. I'm just talking about effort or going out of my zone. I would have done I could have seen a 230 or 235 or something like that might throw me off, in the long run, not just obviously for the run too, but it may, the little things like that, where you race patiently and stayed, right around your known goals, your known limits at the time, but that doesn't mean your next race you're not going to be racing at 230 or whatever. I don't know. I'm just throwing that out there. At least you raced it smart, and I think that can happen to people though, as they get on that race course and go way out and they blow themselves out, and that can be like, having speed sessions every day for a week or something stupid.
Yeah. I mean, the higher the higher the expectation, the higher the farther the fall. And I think that there's I think you should have, there's nothing wrong with having expectations, but when you make them into this like grandiose experiment of validation, then it just the way you consume your thoughts and your feelings and your performance is just, it's not tainted. I would just say it's polluted in that it becomes your singular focus. But if you're, instead of your singular focus being a race, if your singular focus is just really trying to work hard and really trying to be consistent and really trying to, so like, if, for example, like one of my lines that I wrote to Hayden was, I hope I'm setting a good example for you as a father, and that I hope that I'm showing you that no matter how late you get into life, you can always achieve things that you want to achieve, and that you don't have to, settle. And so my thought for that was like, well, I just didn't stop thinking that when I crossed the finish line. Like, see, I showed you once. Like, lesson learned.
Right.
You get look this back on the reel, and when you're a little bit older and realize it's like that's what I want to do every day.
You're playing the long game.
Yeah, exactly. You're playing the long game, and like that's when he gets old enough to like actually realize that that's hopefully what I'm still doing, then it'll sink in. But it's me knowing that that's there too, and I think that like those are the kind of things that you always have on a daily basis. So yeah, was it. And I think that really is the key in so much how you can look at, and I think that to an extent that's what people say when you should look at these, like, they say the Super Bowl, it's just another game, or it's the race is just another training day. It's not so much in the performance aspect of it, but in the mindset aspect of it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's like I woke up the next day and it's like, all right, I'm headed back to the pool and I'll go out today. And it's like, I want to keep getting better. I want to keep setting a good example. I have more things that I want to achieve, and I believe that I can achieve. And just because, all these things didn't just, come, crumbling my way after, a race, and I didn't achieve everything that I want to. It wasn't like, the end of the world. And so you just got to keep moving forward and going in with a good perspective is the greatest predictor of coming out of it with a good perspective.
Mm-hmm. We hear a lot of this talk, and we were talking about it a lot on the road trip, is how often we hear, oh, this is my A race or my C race or my B or D race and all these sorts of things. And when I think about it in terms of that, like say your A race, if you race an early season race and it's your first time outside and all these, you're just not in shape for an A race. If you're trying to call an early season race an A race, or you're trying to do all these things, in a way, if you can keep that perspective you were just talking about, your intentions in check and all these kinds of things, and based on your fitness at the time, really, like, everything could be an A race. You're just racing to where you are, the best of your abilities. You know what I mean? Like, I think that gets, like, I think people get confused by that A race, B race, C race thing. It's sort of like, by natural attrition, I am going to be in better shape towards the end of the summer just because of how my body and how my attitude sort of like matriculates into the season. And for me to go out and try and make, Chattanooga, this race we're doing in a few weeks, my A race, it's just that I'm not ready for it. And if I try to do that, that could really, end my season in a racing way. So that's the hard part, I think, because if you try to race it as a racer, and really go out there and just go above and beyond what you think you're, can do or hope to do, and you're not ready for it, that can really cause a lot of problems. But that doesn't mean you can't race this race solid.
Right.
Solid to where you're at. Just stay within your parameters of the shape you're in. And what was that? What was I thinking? When they were talking about, when then Hutchinson was talking about how he finally broke the 4-minute mile. Remember that story?
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah.
That's kind of what comes to mind for me.
Yeah.
It's sort of like, just he's 40 times he tried to break the 4-minute mark, and he was always within 401 or 402, and he just didn't ever think he was going to be able to do it. And then one day he went out for an easy, I don't know, what was that all about?
He said he had been stuck at it was breaking like the 4-minute barrier in the 1500.
1500.
And
okay.
he had been stuck, which is pretty close, the same thing. But he had been stuck at like the 401 to 403 range for 4 years. And he shows up to this meet, and it's on a crappy track, and the conditions are crappy. And he was just kind of like, I'm just going to kind of go through the motions. And he was like, I'm just going to kind of go at it and see what happens. And he got his first split, his first 2 splits that the guy yelled out, and they were way, way below what he thought he was actually capable of. And so at that point, he just kind of committed to just going by feel and just giving it hell and seeing what happens. And I think he said he ended up running a 3:52. It's like a 9-second PR in the 1500 is like a 20-minute PR and a half. And the funny part about that is that when he got done with the run or the race, he figured out that the guy that was yelling out the splits was wrong.
Yeah.
And he was like 3 or 4 seconds off because I guess he had his buddy in the stands that was keeping track of his splits too on his watch and writing things down for his training journal. And he was like, and so he's like, I basically asked, like, I wonder what I would have done if the splits, like if he hadn't have like basically, accidentally lied to me, what would have happened? Or if he ever, and then he went on to like, once he finally crossed the bridge, he went on to run like down from like a 3:52 to a 3:48, and it was just like he was able to just crush it from there on out. But it was just getting through that barrier. Almost had to like trick himself in his belief in his body that he could do this, and that's where he got to where he's able to get to. But yeah, I thought it was a very fascinating story.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm not sure exactly what it means. I know we talked about it for a long time after that, but it is. There's a lot to be said for you just accepting how you feel and how you flow that day, and just going with it.
Well, yeah, and I think that you and I talked about like the kind of like the athletic cap that each generation puts on itself, and that's right. That's what sets up the next generation's belief in what's actually achievable. Mm-hmm. It's like we discussed, like our athletes. Because that's always the biggest argument. Are athletes really bigger, better, faster, stronger? Do we have access to more information, access to more technology and data? Yes, without question. But I think so much of it has to do as well, because if you look at sports like swimming, where it's like the stroke hasn't changed, so many things are left unchanged, or in running as well. But you're born in a generation, you look to the next one that's like, oh, well, if they can do this, and if I really want to beat it, I've got to do, a sub, 50 for this. And then the next generation is like, oh, well, they did a 48. If I'm going to do this, I have to do a sub 48. So they trained and now do it. So you don't get tricked into it. The next generation just sets a new bar. And so then you've got, a billion people in the world who look at it, and people who actually end up taking up the sport thinking, when they're 6, 7 years old, like, I want to be an Olympic medalist, and if I want to be that, then I'm going to have to do this.
Yeah. You brought up an interesting point on that regarding age groupers looking at last year's results. Remember? Yeah, that's a big thing. And, when everybody looks at age groupers look at the previous year's results, and they always look at, well, last year it took X, Y, and Z to be able to get here. And what they don't, take into account is that everybody else is looking at it saying the same thing. Mm-hmm. So every time you look at results, you need to subtract like 3 to 4% of the finishing time. So if you're the winner of your age group and a full Ironman was 10 hours and 30 minutes, well, the next year it's probably going to take a 10-hour finish. So you always got to go above and beyond, but it's because they always think, well, in order to do this, I've got to believe and train and be consistent enough to get this. But not just at like the highest level where you look at athletes that are in, middle school, high school, college, and they're looking at professionals and thinking, if I want to be the next LeBron James. Like there's somebody out there right now who's thinking, and probably going to be capable of, if I want to do this, I'm going to have to be able to do this, 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 and this to be the next LeBron James or the next Jordan or whatever you want to say, or the next Katie Ledecky. Like there's somebody out there that's training to and may be better than Katie Ledecky. Who just shattered like every world record that we never thought was able to be broken. Mm-hmm. And so you take it from like the most athletic end and the most professional side of the spectrum, but at the very core of what this sport is about and how this sport can grow and why so many people have signed up for these races is because of the opposite. It's not because they see professionals finish. It's because they see other age groupers finish. They're friends.
their friends, their family, their colleagues, their people in their tri group, and they look at them and they think, oh, if they can do it, I can do it. And that's how you get started.
Yeah.
And so it's the exact opposite, but it goes to the same thing. And it's about, it's, the cool thing is like, you just never know who's looking when you're doing something, and so you should always do your best, because somebody could log on that day and see you doing your best and think, see, I can do that too. And the amount of influence and positivity you can have on someone's decision making that can ultimately lead them to do what you're doing that's changed your life can be extraordinary.
Yeah. I really think it's interesting too to look back at how the information age has affected all of this. I mean, you think back to the first ever Kona Ironman, was there like 20 people that did it?
Something like that, 2025, yeah.
And think about that, all right? So somebody saw that on TV. It's like, how in the world would I ever train to do something like that? And you got like 20 people that kind of know the inside scoop on what they did, and they're probably all did different shit, It's like everyone probably had a kind of a different approach to it, or maybe a couple people worked together. And all of a sudden, like, nobody can have that information. It's like when I saw Mark Spitz win 7 gold medals back in the day in the pool, that was cool, but nobody knew what Mark Spitz workouts were. Maybe if you read a report somehow that you got a hold of a buddy had that sent it to you in the mail, or like a few years, several years later, they wrote a book about it or something like that. But now everybody's, training for triathlon, Ironman, whatever, basically sort of has a lot of the same information available at them, the inside stuff. So at what point, do people like LeBron James and Michael Jordan become the greatest ever in their generation? That's all mind stuff, man. I think that's the next phase is like, all right, what they're doing, their workout-wise. LeBron James is working with ropes and pulling sleds and doing all kinds of stuff like that in the off-season. Kind of what they're doing. But now how do you get to their mental mindset? And that's going to be the mystery of this, the next 10 years, I think, is that how they can get into certain places mentally during games, during races. How do these people get there, Because that's the stuff that's not necessarily as easily articulated either.
Yep.
How do they become that next level performer? Peak performance. How do you get peak performance? Well, there's a book on that.
There's also a podcast on that.
There is also a podcast on that. Oh, I guess we didn't interview Magnus about the book, but we interviewed.
Yeah, but we got him before the book, yeah.
And Brad about his book and how you get there. But that's sort of what, yeah.
Yeah, if you haven't, there's we do encourage everybody, because I know we've got a lot of new listeners here in the last few weeks. Please, they're not all awesome, but they're all pretty okay and good. But we have this is like what, podcast 153 or 154?
Yeah, 154.
And we have a huge backlog or catalog of podcasts to listen to, and some really great interviews with Steve Magnus. And Brad Stolberg, separate podcast that Steve talks about running a lot and coaching, but obviously delves into a little bit of the Peak Performance book before it was released, and then Brad does the same thing. And it was more about the book when we had Brad on. But there's a huge back catalog. So take the time, if you like this one, or you're like, you started and you're kind of working your way backwards. Take the time and download some of those. A lot of them kind of piggyback off each other. You've got how to not suck at swimming 1 through 4, how to not suck at cycling 1 and 2, run slow to get fast. Some of our more popular ones, accumulated fatigue. We've got an interview with Andrew Starkowitz, who I think got 3rd at Texas. And so there's a lot of info in there. It's just a ton of information. I think our last iTunes reviewer says, "I rarely stick to my training plan. I don't go to church either. I can't even be bothered to stretch after my runs. The thing is, I have shown up to the treadmill to listen to this podcast at least 1 to 2 times per week for the last year, and I can unequivocally say that it's made me a better person and a better athlete. So at least I get 2 hours of running a week on my worst weeks. Although geared towards triathletes, I think anyone with a penchant for endurance sports will enjoy the introspective nature of this show. When they aren't dropping truth bombs, they're laying down lots of advice for people who are either getting into the sport or want to up their game. So literally everyone. So thank you to I'm not really sure how to pronounce that handle, but thanks for that. We appreciate it. And like this either young lady or young gentleman said, if you have enjoyed this podcast at all, or even just a smidge, then we would appreciate it if you would take the time to get on iTunes and make sure you subscribe to the podcast, and then please feel free to give us your feedback with some stars. And you don't have to leave a written out review. They're helpful because it gives us a little boost of energy, or it gives us something that we can focus on and think, or as we talked about a lot in this podcast, it just reaffirms our intentions and what we're trying to do with this podcast, and kind of helps fuel our thoughts and our goals going forward for what we want to continue to do with the podcast. And as well, if you would like to be part of said podcast conversation, where can they go, Mike?
They can go to the Crushing Iron Close group on Facebook. You search Crushing Iron Group and request entry. We'll let you in there, and then you can meet all these awesome people. It's getting close to 1,000 people in there.
Yeah.
And nice conversation, good friendships are being made all the time.
All day.
We offer coaching. If you go to crushingiron.com, our main website, there's a coaching tab. You can find out all about the philosophy of the coaching. Of course, you can listen to 154 podcasts to get to know us better and know what you're getting into. The pricing's on there. We have camps that are offered, and if you've been listening to the podcast a while and you want to know how you can help support us and keep it going and help us pay the storage fees and the equipment and time and all these other things we put into these podcasts, there's a podcast pledge tab on there. Easy way to donate to the podcast directly with a PayPal or credit card or something. And it's always appreciated, and we've been pretty much twice a week for a year and a half.
Yeah. Yep. That's it.
And we keep going, and we love doing it. We're going to keep doing it, and we hope it adds to your triathlon experience and your life experience.
Yes, we do.
I guess that's about it. And now we get ready for camp.
That's it, man. Got some cleaning up to do, some organizing to do, and we'll be ready to rock tonight. So I'll see you around 6 or a little bit before, probably.
Yeah, we're gonna swing over a little bit before 6. Hopefully, traffic should be all right going that way.
Yeah, if you're probably gonna take Briley over, aren't you?
Sure,
for sure.
Briley.
Yeah, hop over on Briley. It shouldn't be too bad. But yeah.
You coming over to do a little riding today, or are you gonna?
I might. It depends on. I gotta, like I said, finish up a few things around the house, and then if I may just go for a short little easy run on the treadmill if I can't make it out to the lab, just depending on what the time is. But I'm gonna see what I can do.
All right, buddy.
All right, dude. I'll talk to you later.
All right, man. See ya.
See ya.